With us outside the City Hall, where the Finance Minister has just delivered his budget speech, is the Health Minister, Minister Joe Phaahla. Minister, thank you for your time. We've seen some protests from unemployed young doctors. Did you get some relief this afternoon from the Finance Minister to give them a job?
Well, definitely, as I indicated during the debate on the SONA, that we were already talking and there was already an indication. So the minister has now confirmed, as it's now in black and white, just in terms of additional allocation to help us with salary payments to mitigate against the 7.5% salary increase which was implemented in March last year. So we got an additional over the 3 years 11.6 billion rand, 3.7 billion which will be immediate to assist to distribute into our provinces. So that will help us to close the gap in terms of what was now the problem, where we couldn't even be able to activate some posts. So that process is going to be speeded up, and I can assure especially the young doctors who just completed their community service that they must communicate with they must watch the advertisements of posts which many of them which had not been funded, which will now be funded.
Minister, of course, it's very important to give these young doctors a job and get them into the system, but what benefits can they give to our public health sector in terms of building that national health insurance that you want to implement? How important is it, and what improvements can be made to the system by getting these young doctors employed and into the system?
Well, as you would know, provision of health services, it's a very high human resource intensive. Not only doctors, I must emphasize that 11.6 billion is not only to look after doctors, it's to also employ nurses, physiotherapists, pharmacists, and all other, the members of the comprehensive healthcare team. So that's what this is going to do. And because health is a very highly labor intensive with skills, so this is going to take us a long way in terms of reducing queues and making sure that people can get speedy attention. But not only in terms of the human resource, because as the minister indicated, also additional funding in terms of infrastructure, which will also add in terms of equipment, the building infrastructure, upgrading our facilities and building new ones as well to expand access to health services.
Minister, while the President still looks for that pen to sign your bill into law, the Finance Minister saying here this afternoon that things are in progress, but he can't yet give you money for specific programs just yet. What are you going to be doing to accelerate so that we see the Finance Minister actually allocating money for specific aspects that will see the NHI being rolled out?
Well, he's indicated a 1.4 billion rand, which is specifically to strengthen the preparation. So that is the nut and bolts of actually in implementation, which makes it possible that our team, which is strengthening its capacity, the NHI branch, employing more specialists in terms of putting together a package of benefits, looking at how they be managed, looking at risk management, making sure that they can prepare for all those basic foundations. So as that happens, we will be working together with the Treasury, looking at various, I don't want to preempt how that is going to pan out, but I can tell you that if you look at the actual bill itself, even now, it says from 2023 to 2026, a major part of that is putting together the institution. So you must strengthen once the bill has been signed to enact, then the institution, but also continue to improve the capacity of the health system. So the issue of this human resources infrastructure, the health information systems, all those are actually part and parcel of making sure, especially your public health facilities can be ready to be accredited for the services.
Possibly the last budget for SARS Commissioner Edward Kieswetter. or maybe not. Mr. Kieswetter, is this your swan song here at Parliament for Budget 2024?
I'm not a good singer, so I don't know how to do a swan song, Lindsay.
Your views on the budget this afternoon. Revenue still not where it needs to go. Are you happy in your 5 years that you've been at the helm? You've done everything you can to boost the fiscus.
I would never be happy, because whilst we have come a long way and the number speaks to it, we have an even longer way to go. Our real challenge, Lindsay, is not the efficiency of tax collection. In fact, we can demonstrate through the numbers that tax collection efficiency has improved significantly over the last 5 years. Our real challenge is that the economy is stuck. And tax is just a function of the economy. So when two of your largest network companies, one designed to sell electricity and the other one designed to run trains from mines to the ports, when they're not working, then not only do they not have sales and growth and don't pay taxes, they also impact on every other economic activity. So the mines, for example, they have to, unless they become self-reliant, which many have in the last 12 months done, but many are still reliant on electricity and on the logistics. And so that's just one segment through which we can look at the constrained economy. An economist talks about the GDP impact running into several hundreds of billions of rands. And the knock-on effect of that is equally quite important. Secondly, if new jobs aren't created, we've now seen in the media in the last few days companies talking retrenchment. Every new job that is created is another taxpayer. And so our real challenge is, because of the economic slowdown, our tax base is not growing. We have actually, within SARS, increased tax compliance in the last 12 months by about 4 percentage points, which means that we are more efficient at extracting tax from the existing base. But if the base is shrinking or not growing, then you need more than just an efficient SARS to improve the tax revenue.
So in this budget, the finance minister not increasing personal tax, although possibly taxpayers are going to be paying more because you are not taking into account bracket creep, but going after corporate multinational companies. Do you think that could possibly scare them away, or is it going to have the desired effect of increasing the tax base that you speak of?
Honest taxpayers don't run away because of tax legislation. And increasingly, there is a global benchmark. We hear about the setting of minimum taxation, for example, which says that companies who use physical presence as the nexus to pay taxes will increasingly be caught into this global evolution of digital organizations that are physically present somewhere but economically active in another jurisdiction. So I think that will begin to moderate companies simply moving because they want to reduce their burden of tax in one jurisdiction to another one. Of course, there are aggressive tax havens, but there's also law to take care of that. We find in South Africa, for example, that our regulatory environment for financial services sector have not only made our banks world-class, they also make them very profitable. This year, the most significant contributor to our fiscus comes from the financial services, and they have grown year on year by over 7%. Manufacturing has grown less, and they are also constrained by the network industries. But there are two things that specifically are a concern to me as a tax administrator. The first is that the knock-on effect from the network industries has meant that mining profits are down, and the reshaping of spending has also had an impact on slowing down imports and exports, as well as having a direct impact on the quantum of refunds that we have paid out. Some of that is good because it will have an enduring impact on productive capacity of companies, like if companies install additional renewable capacity to be less reliant on Eskom, that is a cost to the fiscus now, but will produce a benefit in the future. So one has to look at the economy as a system, and the tax administration within that system is very reliant.
You're with us in your office at least until May, possibly a little bit longer, we don't know. What are the parting words that you leave on your desk for your successor?
I haven't thought about parting words yet. I'm still working hard to ensure that the revenue ambition of the Minister for this fiscal year is achieved, and we still have 5 weeks to go before I can think of anything else.
Matthew Parks, the Parliamentary Coordinator for COSATU. Matthew, good afternoon. Politicians here this afternoon saying the Minister has failed to put an economic growth plan on the table that will get the economy growing. Are you feeling the same way this afternoon?
Look, I think it's a mixed bag. We are disappointed with some elements. We felt it wasn't bold enough in terms of the economic crisis we are facing. A 41% unemployment rate, the issues of load shedding, of cable theft, corruption and so forth. We really have a stagnant economy. So we had hoped to see a much more aggressive approach by Treasury. We can't continue to simply do business as usual. We're not moving fast enough. But to be fair, there are some good things too. There's been debt relief of 253 billion rand for Eskom that's being rolled out. There's a 47 billion rand loan guarantee for Transnet, so we hope that's going to have the impact, because if we can fix Transnet and Eskom, the economy can take off. We can create jobs, we can save jobs in mining, manufacturing, and agriculture, etc. There's some good commitments around rebuilding local government, which is great. Let's hope it happens. There's a very extensive infrastructure program. Again, let's hope it happens. But I think what disappoints us is that in the State of the Nation address, the President spoke quite eloquently about increasing the SRD grant, which has been a lifeline for 8 million unemployed persons. It's been extended, but it hasn't been increased to adjust at least for inflation. The presidential employment program has been extended, but it's only covering 400,000 people. We really would have hoped, given we have 12 million unemployed persons, to at least increase it to 1 million persons. So it's a mixed bag. There's some good things, there's some disappointing things.
The debt is obviously, as with every budget speech, a major topic and a major theme. Although today, a bit of a surprise move that government is going to look at reserves to pay off some of those debt costs. In your view, is that a wise move?
We think it's wise once off. You can't do it every time. It's not an ATM machine. But we think it can make sense if you invested in assisting Eskom and Transnet specifically, let them pay off their debt. Let them take the money Eskom and Transnet collect and let them invest in infrastructure, in rebuilding our electricity, our freight rail, our ports, because that's key to the economy. That's a wise investment. If we're going to use it for consumption, it won't make sense. And it's something we can do once. You can't repeat it every year.
Thank you very much for your time, Matthew Parks, the Parliamentary Councillor for COSATU. His views on today's budget, and stepping up right behind him is Nkabayomzi Kwankwa of the UDM. Good afternoon, Mr. Kwankwa. Thank you for your time.
How are you?
Very well, thanks, and you. This last budget for this parliamentary term, does it give you hope for the future?
No, it actually just confirmed that the country is broke. They have run down the finances of the country. There is nothing left anymore for them to steal now. The only thing they did was to go and draw down from our country's reserves. It's almost like you are selling all your prized possessions in order to feed the family. That's practically what's happening, because it might compromise the ability of the central bank to defend the currency in the medium to long term if they don't look at the strategy properly. The other issue is Eskom and others by giving them guarantees for their inefficiency and the mismanagement of the resources which were given to them in the past. The other issue which for us we saw, which was clear, is that look, you are going to increase social grants because it's an election year, and you give them 100 rands, which is great. We celebrate that, but guess what? There's a catch to it. We give you one tranche of the increase before elections, and if you vote for us, will reward you after elections in October again with another increase, which is what they are going to use on the campaign trail. So the point is they did not have enough room to maneuver. If they had enough room to maneuver, I'm sure would have gotten an elections budget, which they tried to do but couldn't do because the country has no money.
What would you like to have seen otherwise in this budget that you didn't see today? As you're saying, it is an elections budget. Whether the minister will agree with you or not, he will probably say it was an elections budget. But what would you have wanted to see in this budget that will not be seen as an electioneering tool, but something that's going to try to take the country forward?
The problem is, if you look at what they say in terms of their growth strategy, we've become content or too accustomed with an economic growth of less than 0.5% with all the socio-economic development needs that the country has. The issue for me is there's nothing aggressive about how we're going to grow the economy, right? There's nothing aggressive about what opportunities are going to be explored. Even when you talk about infrastructure development, they like to talk about billions of funds which were committed a long time ago, where there's not even efficiency in the programs that they're implementing. It's a matter of doling out figures without a clear strategy of how to really make sure that you embark on an infrastructure-led growth strategy. It's what you're not hearing here today. It's mentioning old projects, some of which were mentioned by former President Beki when he was still president, trying to regurgitate them. And the other thing is, the African National Congress likes to use Nelson Mandela during an election year, where they would close from a quote by Mandela, using him as a sanitizer because they've messed up things over the past couple of years. Now they are trying to clean their image by using Madiba. Unfortunately, that's not going to work.
Thank you very much for your time. Kabayongzi Kwankwa of the UDM saying 30 years after democracy, government has shown very little here this afternoon in terms of giving hope for the future that the economy here will improve significantly.